Hello and welcome back to the Space Terminal Online Summit. And our next panel is about space entrepreneurship. And I would like to introduce shortly our guests. We have three guests. Linda van Duivenbode is a co-founder and a board member of Groundstation.Space, a platform and a network for innovation with remote sensing data. Also, here is Ricardo Marvao, co-founder of Beta Eye, a collaborative innovation consultancy helping entrepreneurial ecosystems grow. And our third guest is Vicente Gonzalez. He is the CTO and co-founder of FOSSA systems. They provide IoT connectivity through satellites and sensors, reducing the cost of existing IoT solutions. So, hello everyone and welcome here at this online summit. Welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like you to introduce yourselves and your works briefly, shortly, so everyone knows about what you do and what you are enthusiastic about. So let's start with Linda.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. As you said, my name is Linda. I'm board member of Groundstation.Space, which is a foundation, an open innovation network for remote sensing applications. Remote sensing is observations, observing the Earth systems, and being able to gather intelligence from it. And so you can imagine that all these satellites flying around Earth collect lots of data, and it can help us understand what's going on the planet in all sorts of different sectors. And therefore, the sector that this data can use in is super wide-ranging, from agriculture to energy to construction. I think maybe the lady from EU SPA already mentioned some of them. And we try to broker between, on the one hand, the supply side, so the companies developing applications and those maybe looking for these applications. And also we try to bridge the knowledge side, so the universities where a lot of knowledge is gathered and technology developed, and how that can be translated again to companies in the market.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We shall shortly dive into the exact challenges, but first let's go on. And Ricardo, please tell us about yourself and your work.
Hi, my name is Ricardo. I'm one of the co-founders of Beta Eye, and basically we're a global consultancy firm focused on innovation, working to find solutions for big problems inside big organizations. The topic that I wanted to discuss here is one of the things that we work is also on education. And inside education, we developed this Space for Business program. And so this Space for Business program is focused on the way, especially in the last decades, that the private sector has really grown in the space industry, and how can we tackle now not the engineering side, but the business side of space, and how can we bring in new young professionals, new entrepreneurs, new people that want to enter into this industry, but don't come from the background of engineering, but want to go inside by the background of business.
Well, that's the $100 million question, isn't it, right? Especially on this summit. Okay, thank you very much. Vicente, would you please introduce yourself too?
Yeah, sure. My name is Vicente Gonzalez, and I am the CTO and co-founder of FOSSA Systems. We are a really young startup. We were founded in July 2020, and we basically provide IoT connectivity services for low-power applications. Through the integration of space technology, this is our FOSSA to Evolve platform. This is a pico satellite who weighs less than 1 kilo, but we also produce the nodes, the ground nodes, to provide these connectivity services. We are mainly focused on applications such as agriculture, logistics, trucking, smart farming, or even energetics industry. And basically that's all.
Thank you. Well, I never thought that someone at one day of my life would just present a satellite in his hand. So that's a micro one for sure. Thank you very much. So my first question is actually for all of you. space entrepreneurship requires an extra dose of risk tolerance, so to say. So why on earth get into it? Who goes first?
Ladies first.
Okay. Then Linda, if ladies first.
Okay. Well, firstly, I don't know if it's the right thing to do to disagree with the, the question straight away. I don't know. I work in a lot of sectors, and I don't know that space is by definition more difficult than any other sector. Of course, there are parts of it, I think, like developing satellites and getting them launched into space and having the opportunity to get your first flight might be a difficult process to get into, but certainly on the application side, I don't know if it's more difficult than any other sector that I have worked in. But of course, the attraction is that you work with a high-tech sector. You work in a high-tech sector, so it's definitely innovation-driven. And also the fact that the European Union has invested in these systems, such as the Copernicus Earth Observation System, as an operational system rather than previously where it was more science-driven, which allows us to tap into that data set and develop applications that we have never been able to develop before. And I think that makes it very exciting and why you see so many entrepreneurs come into the field.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, of course. I think one of the things that we've seen is really now a surge of entrepreneurs coming into this space industry. And I think it will be a lot bigger in the coming decade because, I mean, we'll have more satellites in space in the coming decades than we've had since Sputnik. And so this will create a new infrastructure, new opportunities. Even people that don't understand anything about space can enter into this, especially in the downstream. So anything using space technology to actually work on a specific industry on Earth, like healthcare or agriculture, fisheries, you name it. I mean, space technology can be used in anything. And so I think there will be a lot more entrepreneurs coming into this field. Plus, space is super sexy. It's one of these things that you dream since you were a kid. You know, who doesn't want to be an astronaut? You know, you always talk about this with kids. And so I think if you join all these parts together, you see that space has a great opportunity to grow right now. And that's why we created this program. It's a European program with 3 business schools focused on the business side, focused on how you can find the new business models that can actually be made and put into practice in the market for new opportunities that are basically opportunities that you put on top of, for instance, an infrastructure. I mean, when the internet arrived, people didn't have to know anything about how the internet worked. I mean, the details, the technical details of how the internet worked.
Sure, we just dive in, yeah.
Yeah, and so here it's an opportunity to really understand where are the opportunities, get into the market, and create new startups, new businesses. So that's what we believe.
And actually, that's what Vicente did. So Vicente, we are really keen to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with my colleagues. For me, as I understand space entrepreneurship, it has to do with this new reduction or high reduction of the cost of accessing to space. I think that the new space paradigm doesn't mean bad space somehow, because this kind of satellite has all the subsystems as a bigger satellite has. But for me, new space is a new paradigm that leads to higher risk in taking due to the reduction of the cost. At the end, the lower the cost, the higher is the likelihood to succeed, because you can try your technology in orbit. You don't have to waste a lot of money to test all the devices and components, because you can test it in orbit.
Sure. We already have an audience question, well, not just one. In your opinion, is there enough actor in the space technology market, or is it rather monopolistic? Well, we are already 4 of us here, so, but let's go start with you first, Vicente. Do you think, is it monopolistic?
Well, I think at the very beginning of the new space era, it was somehow monopolistic, but now with all the emergence of different companies such as Planet, Spire, SpaceX, and these kind of things, it's a more open market.
Mm-hmm. And what can we do, what can you do to rather open it even more? Ricardo and Linda, what do you think of this?
I think it's going to open a lot more. We haven't even scratched the surface. I mean, in the next decade, this is going to be an exponential growth of companies entering into this space market. We've seen a lot more in the US than in Europe, and we're starting to pick up in Europe, but this is just the beginning. I think if anyone should look at one industry, it's the space industry to enter in the next decade.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Linda?
Yeah, I think I would agree with the previous two. As soon as we start to lower the barriers to entry, so in the way that Vicente has done by miniaturization, so making small systems and giving them access to the satellites that go into orbit. I think that's probably the only element that could be monopolistic, because not everyone can build big rockets to launch these satellites into space. But if we open up the launch opportunities, then the barriers to entry are getting much lower because of these cost reductions that Vicente is talking about. Mm-hmm. And of course, again, the EU programs help, and the EU legislation, so just the European market functioning will also help. At the beginning, there might always be a monopolist, but there's no reason why that should stay the case.
Yeah, yes, we already heard about the opportunities in the European region in the panel before this one. So I would like to ask the how. How does the space sector and the space assets help companies and help create opportunities to create new business models? So how does this work? What do you think?
I can go first.
Okay.
I mean, so Linda was talking about all this data, and I mean, these satellites collect so much data, and depending on the industry that you are, you can actually develop new opportunities because of this extra data that you have, mm-hmm. because of these more satellites that will collect even better data on the different industries. You can actually define or create opportunities in the industries that exist today, but you improve the service, or you improve the way people handle the different problems. And so I think this is really the downstream of the space industry is really where I see a huge opportunity. Of course, you can always talk about going to the moon and Mars, and this is like the inspirational part. But I think where we're going to have a huge growth is really on the downstream and using space technology to improve the different industries on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Linda, any thoughts you would like to add?
Yeah, again, I think similar. I mean, what Vicente shows is that, of course, you need the satellite in orbit to pick up a signal or send a signal or send data. But then the sensor he was showing in his other hand, that's where the real power is. So that's where you get the information that you can turn into something actionable. And that's where the opportunities are going to be, because that's where, we have so many challenges here on Earth. It was already mentioned climate, but biodiversity, plastic pollution, heat islands in cities, atmospheric pollution, so air quality. And in all of those domains, the combination of what Vicente was showing with the sensors on the ground and the sensors in space and everything in between, that gives us that intelligence that we need, and the entrepreneurs. And for me, you asked at the beginning, what excites you? I think, science is absolutely crucial. Education is absolutely crucial. But for me, the entrepreneur that sees the opportunity, and is able to develop something that the market is waiting for, is looking to buy. That for me is the exciting bit. And for me here in Europe, the combination of entrepreneurs that see a business model, but also see that they can make an impact. So this combination of what we call it in our program, profit and purpose. Mm-hmm. So there's profit to be had, but there's also, you are also contributing to something that society needs. But I see a lot of in European entrepreneurs that I find really, really exciting.
So let's ask one, Vicente, how is profit and purpose show up in your company?
Well, we cannot understand one of the words without considering the other. For sure, we are a company, so we need to make profit out of our business case. As Linda perfectly exposed, it's integrate body connectivity of the Earth sensor with the satellite. But for sure, it has to have an impact. I mean, we can use this kind of sensors to monitor CO2 or nitrogen or pH variation on ground. And at the end, this information that you get from the sensor is what once post-processed becomes knowledge and intelligence on the business case. So we could really help to the monitorization and fight against climate change, which is probably one of the most impact activities that we can do with our services.
We have another audience question, and Vicente, I asked you first. So, why do you think, or do you think, is it hard to start a business in space industry, as you did? What is the biggest barrier or challenge to tackle?
Well, one of the biggest barriers is indeed the launch cost. This is why we decided to miniaturize so much the technology to reduce a lot the barrier cost of entering the space. But there's also another significant part on space entrepreneurship, which is all the stuff related to licenses, frequencies assignment, all that involves government activities, which is, apologize for the words, a pain in the ass, because you are not used to this kind of bureaucracy. Indeed, we are a really agile company. We sign contracts from sign to launch between 3 to 6 months, and normally the administration is much slower, assigning frequencies and licenses.
Linda and Ricardo, what other challenges do you see, and how can companies tackle those challenges in the beginning of starting the business?
I think, again, I think, personally, I think that starting a business is very easy. And for me, the challenge is to thrive and grow, where the challenge is mostly. Because there are a lot of support systems like the incubator, the ESA incubator and the European Commission to start a company. So it's very easy to get into it. But as Vicente says, to really have the staying power and to make it work, have a team that works together and to grow, that is where the real challenge. And for Europe, that's where the real challenge is going to be.
Ricardo, what do you see about this? Is Ricardo here? Maybe we lost him. I'm asking my colleagues. No, well, he will hopefully come back. But then let's go on. How can the companies, and where can they reach out? What do you see when the company, they started the innovation, they are in the market, what can they do and how can they grow? Linda.
Yeah, well, as I said, there at national level, at European level, there are a lot of support systems. So the EU SPA, the lady who was in session before us, when you go to their website, you'll see that there's a lot of information there on how to start a business and all sorts of instruments that they have developed, like prizes and hackathons from the really, I have an idea that I want to explore, all the way to the incubator where you start a company. And as I said, I think that's where it gets hard, because quite often then you're like, okay, I'm in the space sector and I'm in the incubator and I'm supported. But really what startups need to do is take that step to the market. So who is your market? reach out to them, talk to them to see if your idea is really viable and the market is actually waiting for it and has money to pay for it.
Ricardo, are you back already? Not yet, not yet. So we will.
I am.
You are here.
I'm
Perfect.
sorry, I was sound in the computer. Sorry.
Perfect. Welcome back. We lost you when we spoke about the challenges of the companies and the entrepreneurs in the beginning. So, what are your views on that?
You mean when you're starting a company?
Yes, when you are emerging, coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're starting a company, if you're starting a startup, you really have to believe in what you're doing and with the product that you're selling. If you're not believing, I mean, nobody else will believe. Who's going to buy a product that?
Ricardo, sorry to interrupt you. Can you please move your mobile phone into the vertical so then we can see you better? Like not horizontally, so not standing to the phone, but just lay down your phone and then everyone can
you see me?
Lay down your phone like 90 degrees.
Like this?
Yes, perfect. That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. My colleagues were asking you to. Perfect.
Sorry.
So go on.
Yeah. So I was saying, I mean, if you really start a startup that and you have to believe in what you're doing, I mean, it's going to be a difficult road, and you're going to have a lot of struggles, and especially if you're growing quite fast, you're going to find difficult problems along the way. You have to not only meet the right people, and at the beginning it's going to be hard to find the right people, but you have to keep on going and believing, and if your product has traction, then really go after the biggest market. I think one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs tend to face and then don't go to the next level is sometimes you have to find the industry where your product really makes a difference. And maybe it's not the first industry where you went to. And because you're selling already to that industry, you're afraid of going to another industry and really finding out if that industry is really the one that like would pay today for your product instead of maybe in 2 months. And so maybe sometimes you have to discover, I mean, maybe your product works in health, but actually it's in agriculture that's really amazing, the final result. And people are really interested in buying your product in that industry. So that part is really difficult to, especially if you're already selling. But yeah.
So that is the beginning. Let's ask Vicente, how was it in your case? Was there any challenges like this?
Well, we started because we had a very first customer even before building the platform.
Well, that's professional. You're already having a customer before starting a startup. Great.
But you cannot just focus in one customer. You can have one customer, but maybe you don't have the market. So I totally agree with Ricardo. You have to find the right path to one specific market, and then if you succeed, then you exploit this market. But if you don't succeed in exploiting this market, for example, in agriculture, then you have to move to another one, like logistics, and see if there's a better fit between your product and the market needs. What do you see when companies grow and for example, you have a platform and a network for innovation, Linda. What do you see there, and how can you go on or continue this journey as an entrepreneur or as a startup?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the lessons I heard in a recent session is try and shake off that startup label that you have. It's quite easy to get stuck in the startup scene, and it's everyone sees it as oh, you're a startup. That sounds so, like Ricardo says, that in itself already sounds sexy. But you really have to make the transition from being a small startup company, small team where everyone pitches in and works to a managed company. So all of a sudden, from a startup entrepreneur, you're becoming a manager. And I think that's a transition that also can be quite difficult, and where even after a period of say 5 to 7 years, when the startup company has been doing quite nicely, but it goes into that scaling phase where it falls apart, because that's quite a difficult step again to make, where you start hiring people and managing people. The financials change. You're looking for a different type of investors, where mistakes can be made, or the whole dynamic changes of that company.
Before we go on with Ricardo, just telling you that I lost track of time because when we lost you, so it's kind of a closing remarks, please, Ricardo, if you share your thoughts as closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, so, but just taking into what Linda was saying, I mean, it's super important that you understand also that maybe you're not the best person to do the next phase of that startup or company that you're building. And it's important that you understand that maybe your skills are important at the beginning, but maybe then you have to hire someone to grow the company to the next phase. Above all, I mean, I just want to say, I mean, the space industry is just an amazing industry. It's just starting on the private sector. There's huge opportunities. We started this program on the Space for Business with 3 business schools, with St. Gallen, Rotterdam School of Management, and Nova, and with the support of the European Space Agency. And we really want to see more people, young professionals, entrepreneurs coming to the program and starting new businesses, because there's a lot of opportunities now in the space industry. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for running out of time and just cutting our actually very lively conversation almost in half. Thank you very much for participating and being with us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shortly, we shall continue with Women in Space. We will come back in half a minute.